Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the November 7th San Diego LAFCO meeting to order. And if we could please have the roll call, please.
Sure. Commissioner Salas is absent. Commissioner Desmond?
Here.
Oh. Is Salas here?
Change my voice. Here.
Someone say hi to me.
Commissioner Anderson? Commissioner Anderson is absent. Commissioner Kate?
Here.
Commissioner McKenzie? I'm sorry. Commissioner Willis?
Here.
Commissioner Vanderlyn?
Present.
Commissioner McNamara?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Becker?
President?
Alternate Commissioner Vargas is absent. Alternate Commissioner Von Wilpert is absent. Alternate Commissioner Drake?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Mathis? Alternate Commissioner Mathis
He's trying to log in.
is absent. There is a quorum.
All right, Tammy, thank you very much. We're going to please, I want to ask Commissioner Kate to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Stand, take the flag, right hand over your hearts, and begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
All right. When I learned my son's Boy Scout merit badge on flag placement, the flag's supposed to be on the right-hand side of the podium. Well, we got all bases covered here today, which is good. Thank you. Okay, we have the agenda reviews. Our next item here, King, have you got any updates for today's agenda?
Thank you, Chair Desmond, and good morning, commissioners and guests. King Simons, just for the video and audio record. So, with respect to the agenda, we do have a couple of items that we'd like to take out of order, if you will. On 5G as in girl, by the advice of council, we'd like to pull that item out of consent so we can pick that up right after you get done with public comments. And then separately, 7E as in Elaine, which is near and dear to me, Commission, will be taken up after the closed session. So those are the only changes to the agenda. I do want to point out, just for the record, we did receive a couple of requests late last week for the Commission to pull item 7A, and that's our discussion on a draft policy on out-of-agency services. The request came in from Vista Fire and Otay Water District and follows essentially the form and content of a separate email that was sent out by the California Special Districts Association. Now, in consultation with the chair, I certainly believe that going forward with this plan discussion is appropriate, and for reasons that we can detail when you take up the item. And again, that's 7A. Other than that, I just want to note for those who are in the audience who'd like to participate in the audience here in room 302, we're missing our speaker slips. So if you want to speak on any item today, if you make your way to Tammy has a sheet that she can then pass on to the chair. And then separately, if you're watching or listening online on our YouTube channel, you can also reference the instructions we have on our agenda face sheet, which includes being able to provide live email comments. And I appreciate there's about a 30-second delay or so on the feed, so staff will take that into consideration. And just for the benefit of the commission, Tammy will be overseeing those registered speakers as well as any speakers that come in the audience, and then Michaela Peters will be monitoring our inbox. So with that, Chair, we are good to go. Again, with the request up front that we pull 5G for upfront consideration after public comment.
That's fine. And I see you walking around. Is everything okay? Oh, it's me. All right. There we go. Thank you. Okay, so that, so Keen, we'll do 5G after consent and then 7E after closed session, and I agree with you on 7A. 7A is just a discussion item that, and feedback from the commission before then going out and getting public review and more inputs and more comments. So we'll leave that on the agenda as well.
And just for confirmation, Chair, so the request is for 5G to be pulled and considered right after public comment, so before
Oh,
consent.
after public comment?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Is there any other commissioners who want to have any updates or changes they wish to make to the agenda? Is there any online? I can't tell. Looks good. Okay, I don't see any, so we'll keep moving along. So we'll go into public comments and then 5G. So do we have any public comments, Tammy, not on today's, on items not on today's agenda?
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
Mark Hatman.
Go ahead, Mark.
You can't hear me, is that right?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Mark Adams, and I'm special counsel for the County Water Board. I'm commenting on staff's draft prospectus on Fall Brook Rainbow applications coming to you next year. LAFCO staff has invited comment and says they are open to changes. This is important because the prospectus is very flawed. I can't cover all the areas here, but I want to highlight a few for you. As to cost, the prospectus suggests granting detachment with a 5-year exit fee. The figures used by the prospectus are understated. The losses to the rest of the county will occur for many decades, not just for 5 years. Also, the exit fee in the prospectus is far too low based on actual data. However, even using the LAFCO staff numbers, other San Diego County ratepayers will pay an extra $2 a month, so Rainbow and Fallbrook customers can supposedly save $20. Rainbow and Fallbrook want you to bless rate increases across the county so they can evade costs incurred for their benefit. Also, Fallbrook and Rainbow ratepayers will pay you far more than advertised. LAFCO expert Dr. Hanneman called the applications, quote, gamble, end quote, because Fallbrook and Rainbow customers may pay a, quote, higher price than they had anticipated, end quote. As to Met voting rights, the prospectus admits the loss of our county's voting rights to Met is a concern, as critical votes are very close to Met now. The prospectus suggests swapping voting rights for 5 years, but this idea is not lawful under the Met Act. As to water reliability, the prospectus says the water supply for Met is, quote, reliable, end quote, to cover Fallbrook and Rainbow. Dr. Hanneman said no such thing. Further, staff are relying on stale data. A third of Met's population is currently under cutbacks. This includes no agricultural or commercial uses in many areas. Met is preparing for service area-wide cutbacks in January. Rainbow and Fallbrook will be relying totally on Met for imported water at a time when Met is facing severe shortages, including cuts to agricultural use. On the Bay Delta and Seaflood, the applications that granted would increase reliance on the Bay Delta, contrary to the legislature's directions. The prospectus is silent on this issue. The Bay Delta and environmental matters are not exempt under CFA, as explained in our response filed with LAFCO. Finally, as to voting, the prospectus claims the Commission cannot grant service area-wide vote requested by the Water Authority if there's an approval. This is not correct. As explained in our response submitted to LAFCO, the law allows the Commission to condition any approval on a vote in our county. These are just a few of the serious flaws in the prospectus. LAFCO staff has requested comment by November 30th, with which we will comply. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And Tammy, do you have any others?
Yes. Kelly Gage, Director of Water Resources.
Okay. Oh, here she is. Thank you.
Yes. So thank you, and good morning, Chair Desmond, Vice Chair McNamara, and Commissioners. I'm Kelly Gage, the Director of Water Resources at the San Diego County Water Authority, and I want to thank you for the opportunity today to address you about our state and region's current drought, the pending supply cutbacks in the southern part of our state, and what this means for San Diego County. Our General Manager, Sandy Curl, and I were here in June to provide an update to the Commission on drought conditions across the Southwest. We told you that this is the worst drought in 1,200 years. Since then, conditions have continued to worsen, and the outlook for the foreseeable future is not good. In fact, the last 3 water years were the driest on record since 1896. The state's major reservoirs remain well below average, and a quick rebound is not projected even if we have wet conditions this winter. You may be aware that Metropolitan Water District only received 5% of its state water project supply allocation for 2022, and it required it to apply for and obtain human health and safety needs in a large part of its service area, as you just heard. Human health and safety means being limited to 55 gallons per person per day with zero water allowance for agriculture, for businesses, or commercial uses, not even an allocation for fire suppression. Right now, this condition is expected to continue on the state water project, but turning to the Colorado River, things are not much better. Elevations in the major reservoirs on the river continue to decline and will likely result in continued reduced deliveries to Arizona, Nevada, and Mexico in 2023. While we don't anticipate Colorado River reductions to California in 2023, it's very possible that California will also face reduced deliveries in 2024. If this occurs, Metropolitan would be significantly affected due to its low priority water rights on the Colorado River. The exact details of this are still unknown and being worked out by all parties on the Colorado River Basin. So where does that leave Southern California? Well, that depends on where you are and who your supplier is. If you are one of the 6 million people living in Metropolitan's service area that's completely dependent on the state water project, you are taking just the human health and safety deliveries for Metropolitan, and meter restrictors are being placed for customers who are using more than their water allowance by their retail water agencies. Looking ahead to 2023, Metropolitan has signaled that it plans to mandate water supply cutbacks, like you just heard, across the entire service area due to its inadequate and shrinking supplies from their 2 sources. For agencies that are 100% reliant on Metropolitan, there will be hardships and impacts to businesses, farmers, and residents. It's against this backdrop, the good news is that the Water Authority is no longer dependent on Metropolitan. San Diego County Water Authority has its own independent, highly reliable water supply sources from Cedar Rights on the Colorado River and the Carlsbad Seawater Desalination Plant. And San Diego residents are using 43% less water than they did in 1990, a big accomplishment, and continue to do more conservation in this drought. That means we have the water available to meet the needs of San Diego residents, businesses, and farming without suffering the crippling cutbacks faced by Metropolitan customers. This information and more is shown in the handout that I've provided to you. In closing, we're thankful for the bold leadership over the past 2 decades by our region's elected officials, community leaders, the Water Authority Board of Directors, our member agencies, and our ratepayers, who made these investments to ensure that San Diego County could be protected in future droughts, such as the one we're experiencing now. If you'd like a more detailed presentation on the drought and the outlook for water supplies, the Water Authority is available to return to the Commission at a future meeting. Chair Desmond, Vice Chair McNamara, and Commissioners, thank you for your time, and I will be around after the meeting to address any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kelly, and I agree, the Water Authority has done a great job in diversifying and getting us off entirely relying on other places for water, so great job there. Okay, do we have Tammy, do we have anybody else, or Michaela, do we have anybody online or anything?
Yes.
We do, okay.
There's an Aaron Bizak.
Yeah,
You got it right.
Good morning, members of the LAFCO board and staff. My name is Aaron Bizak, and I'm the Chief External Affairs Officer for Tri-City Healthcare District. By way of background, I've been working in healthcare for nearly 30 years, and in policy specifically for over 20 years, including several here at the County Board of Supervisors. I'm here today to speak on behalf of our district on a matter that is hopefully will be decided in the near future. Last month, we provided comments about an item of great concern, specifically related to Palomar Health District's incursion into our district boundaries. My goal today is to summarize some of the key findings of this ongoing discussion. First, in 2021, Palomar Health District entered into contracts with Vista Community Clinic and True Care to provide labor and delivery services for our local residents, many of whom are from the region's most at-risk communities. Prior to moving those deliveries to Palomar Health District, both clinics had delivered at Tri-City Healthcare District for many years and had, by their own admission, received high-quality care. Also by their own admission, the clinics made clear that the decision to move services to Palomar Health was a financial one. As part of their new arrangements, patients from our district are being directed to leave the district, bypassing the capable services provided by our hospital, and to travel an additional 13 miles to Palomar Medical Center. We also know that Palomar Health didn't submit the requisite request for incursion into our district until mid-2022, after they had already been operating in our district for a number of months. Palomar Health, whose leadership includes a person who serves on the LAFCO Advisory Committee and somebody who was formerly the chair of the Board of Supervisors, now claims that they were somehow unaware of the rules up until just recently. We also know that the letter that Palomar Health submitted to the executive officer of LAFCO, attempting to justify their decision, contained numerous provably false statements, leading to the unfounded allegation that a public health crisis existed in our district. This was clearly an attempt to retroactively justify their actions. But facts matter. The truth matters. And the truth is that no public health crisis existed in our district at the time they entered into the contract, and no crisis existed months later when they finally got around to requesting permission to do what they had already done. We now know that Tri-City Healthcare District was notified only in August of Palomar Health's allegations, and that a mere 4 days later, the executive officer of LAFCO made the decision to grant the request. Most importantly, we also know that the decision is having real consequences for the mothers and babies of our district and has been documented by members of our clinical team at the last meeting and in subsequent letters to LAFCO. At the last meeting, the LAFCO board rightly requested that the matter be reevaluated and returned to the board in 60 days. It has now been 35 days. We have been contacted by a LAFCO designee to discuss the matter, and we are eager for that to occur, but that meeting has not yet taken place. We look forward to doing so at the earliest possible date and are anxious to have our district made whole again. To aid in your decision-making, I've taken the liberty of providing copies of several letters that have been made available to us and have also been sent to your leadership here at the board. We hope that you take these into consideration as you assess whether or not the incursion into our district should be allowed to stand. Thank you very much. And Jessica's going to be passing those letters to you. There's 3 letters. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. All right, while the letter passing goes on, here they come. So, yeah, Tammy, you have any other?
None, Chair.
Michaela, anybody online?
Do we have an email, Michaela, for general public? Yeah. So we do have one comment that Michaela is going to read into the record. It was an email received this morning for open time.
Okay.
Okay. This comment comes from Jose P., and he says, Honorable LAFCO Commissioners, my name is Jose P., and I currently serve on the San Diego County Water Authority Board representing ratepayers in the South Bay. My comment to you is in response to the recent prospectus addressing Rainbow and Fallbrook's 2019 applications to detach from the San Diego County Water Authority. Attachment would not only increase the cost of water for the majority of county residents, but also reduce our influence on critical water issues in Southern California. Setting aside for a moment that both applications are now outdated and insufficient, the staff prospectus fails to properly consider environmental justice, one of the most important criteria imposed on reorganization decisions. Specifically, the staff prospectus ignores Government Code Section 56668 and the San Diego LAFCO's own policy statement requiring that any decision concerning detachment consider environmental justice when analyzing the impacts of the county's water ratepayers. LAFCO staff must identify and establish that their recommendation will not unfairly burden vulnerable communities. It is deeply concerning to me that the staff report has no substantive discussion of environmental justice. Even worse, the draft prospectus advocates to allow Fallbrook and Rainbow to detach for a nominal fee and recommends that the remainder of San Diego County be taxed. Mr. Simon's approach not only appears to be contrary to law, but also to his office's own policy statement on environmental justice. More troubling, however, the recommended staff approach openly seeks to shift Rainbow and Fallbrook's financial burden onto the most vulnerable. Today, with fuel and food prices at all-time highs and skyrocketing housing and energy costs, Mr. Simon seeks to further burden our most disadvantaged and underserved communities. I am very concerned that just because the estimates for rate increases appear nominal, the LAFCO staff has concluded that there will be no impact. I am here to tell you that this is not true. There are impacts. Neither Mr. Simons, his staff, nor the Commission should approve Rainbow and Fallbrook's application if there is any impact to our disadvantaged communities that I directly represent. because such an act will be a direct undermining of the environmental justice principles that the state of California and this LAFCO have imposed. I remind you of your obligations, and I ask Mr. Simons and his staff to remember their legal and moral obligations as this process moves forward and to thoroughly analyze environmental justice impacts of detachment.
Thank you, Michaela, appreciate it. So we have no other speakers to this?
None, Chair.
None, okay. Wow, a lot of heavy stuff going on at LAFCO. So there's a lot of big decisions to be made coming up here very soon. So now we're going to go into 5G of the consent item. And I know there's Assembly Bill 361. This is about the authorizing the continuation of hybrid or fully remote meetings as a commission for the next 30 days. I know there's been some legal changes or legislation coming through that's going to be taking place on January 1st. And then the governor said that on February 28th, the emergency is going to be over. So is it Holly? Where are we and what's going on here with this item?
This item is the changes that you talked about. I'm actually going to be briefing the commission on a little bit later in the agenda.
Okay.
And those take effect March 1.
Okay.
When the emergency ends. There will be some changes January 1 that really won't kick in until after the end of the emergency, assuming it is ended as planned. So this is just really the routine authorization to continue hybrid meetings, including today's.
So Keaton, why'd you pull this out to be done?
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Is it needs to be passed now before we attend to other items on here, including the other consent items.
Okay.
Because we don't have the authorization today to
right,
participate
okay.
remotely. Any action we take after this would be challengeable.
Okay. So what you're asking for today, there's alternative one that gives us another 30-day period from November 7th to December 7th, and then we'd have to, I guess, take that up again. Personally, I'd like to see us go back to in-person meetings just starting either December or January. The emergency is going to be declared over, and I think, although we do have commissioners that are online that didn't have to make the drive, and it's an hour for me back and forth. Could have saved gas, but I think it's time we do get back to in-person meetings. So I'll make a motion to approve alternative 2, which is to authorize today's meeting, but then after that we go back to full in-person meetings that would start at December 7th. I'll make that motion if there's a second.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any substitute motions out there? All right, let's go ahead and please vote. Or call the roll, Tammy.
Commissioner Desmond?
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderlin?
Andy, you're muted.
I'll come back. Commissioner Anderson is absent.
No. Anderson, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner
You
Cates?
hear my vote?
Yes. Commissioner Cates?
No.
Commissioner McNamara?
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Aye.
Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
Commissioner Salas?
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderlin?
Andy, are you there? Thumbs up or thumbs down, Andy? We can't hear you. Thumbs up. Okay.
Yes. I have 6 in favor, 2 opposed. The motion passes.
All right, thank you. So we'll be in person on December 7th. Okay, we'll move on to the rest of the consent items. This is 5A through 5F. Do you have any discussion from any of the members or a motion?
Motion to approve the consent calendar items A through F.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner McKenzie, second by Commissioner Willis. Do we have any commissioner comments on any of the items, consent? Tammy, do we have any speakers, public speakers on consent?
No,
These items?
none, Chair.
Mackenzie, anybody online? I think we got everybody covered. Okay, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Salas?
Aye.
Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Aye.
Commissioner McNamara?
Aye.
Commissioner Kate?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderlin?
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
So it's 8 in favor, 0 opposed, the motion passes.
All right, thank you, Tammy. Okay, thanks, everyone. We've got 2 public hearing items before us today, 6A and 6B. Before we get started on 6A, do any commissioners have any ex parte communication that they wish to disclose before this item, 6A? This is the Mar Vista Island reorganization. Well, I did have a conversation with the mayor of Vista, and she reamed me out for the way I voted last time. So,
On which item?
6A, the Mar Vista, and so, which is fine. So I did have a discussion with her, and I think I had also a discussion with Vice Mayor John Franklin as well on 6A. Anybody else? No. Okay. Tina, I see you going for the microphone
Well,
here.
thank you, Chair Desmond. So I'm going to ask Priscilla Mumpower to pick us up where we left off from August.
All right, good morning, commissioners. Good morning, members of the public who are joining us today. Priscilla Mumpower, analyst with San Diego County LAFCO. I'm going to be doing the presentation for the Mar Vista reorganization proposal this morning. So Du's going to pull up the PowerPoint for me, but before the commission is a public hearing item continued from the August 1st meeting involving a reorganization proposal filed by the City of Vista for the principal action of annexing about 142 unincorporated acres within its existing sphere of influence. Now, the effective territory, as shown up on the screen, is divided into 2 distinct areas along Mar Vista Drive that are both surrounded by city limits. So Area 1 comprises one parcel which is 2 acres in size and developed with a single-family residence, while Area 2 comprises just over 100 parcels and about 140 acres in size, with the southern portion of Area 2 comprising Stonegate subdivision, which was a development approved by the county in 2003. Now, on the following 3 slides, I'll be showing the effective territory relative to specific boundary changes. So this map up on the screen shows the effective territory relative to City of Vista's existing boundary. The next map shows the effective territory relative to the Buena Sanitation District boundary, which would be detached as part of the proposal. And then lastly, the last map shows the effective territory relative to Vista Fire Protection District's boundary, and similarly would be detached as part of the proposal. Now, the Commission will recall in opening the hearing in August that there are a couple unique factors that underlie the proposal, and 2 in particular. So first, that the proposal is subject to the island annexation proceedings with the provisions listed on this slide. So this means if certain determinations apply, and we believe that they do, then the Commission is duty-bound to approve the proposal while also waiving protest. I'll add here that the Commission retains its authority to modify or term any approval, but your normal and considerable discretion in taking up boundary changes is otherwise curbed in this instance. The second unique factor is the lack of direct resident and/or landowner advocacy for the proposal. There are no residents and/or landowners championing this proposal, but rather this is coming forward as a planning to-do list item by the City of Vista. And specifically, the City of Vista is looking to proceed now with the proposal for 2 reasons. So 1, in the immediate term, annexation would do away with an existing outside service agreement that has proven administratively burdensome and commits the City of Vista to receive sewer flows coming out of the Stonegate subdivision in Area 2. In the longer term, the annexation would serve to make Vista more whole and position the city to better coordinate land use and service planning for both areas as well as the surrounding lands. Now, while these reasons make good planning sense, they have left the community concerned about what exactly happens
should they get annexed and what potential impacts it will have on their quality of life. And it's these issues that the commission heard at the August 1st meeting and prompted the continuation with direction to staff to perform additional outreach to better assess community concerns and what, if any, actions the commission can take to remedy. So towards this direction, your staff, along with the Vista Community Development Director, John Conley, who is here today, held 2 noticed community meetings in late September and early October. And just as the commission heard in August, there is standing angst within the community about annexation and the expressed uncertainties about how Vista will ultimately plan for this area. And while LAFCO does not have the ability in statute to prescribe planning, we do have the authority to prescribe timing. And so accordingly, staff has expanded its earlier recommendation to conditionally approve the proposal as shown on this following slide with an additional term. The additional term is in bold and letter A, and requires the City of Vista to agree to prepare and adopt a specific plan for the affected territory within the next 24 months. And in doing so, commit the city to proceed with a formal planning process to establish development standards with the community members being enfranchised to participate as newly minted city voters. In coming up with this additional term, staff does want to acknowledge the City of Vista's cooperation in agreeing to this addition and allowing staff to return today with what we believe is a better proposal for the community than what we presented back in August. And with that, Commission, I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Priscilla, appreciate that.
I have a question.
You have a question? Go
If it's
ahead. Go
appropriate.
ahead.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to confirm, so the detachment from the Vista Fire Protection District, who will pick up the fire protection? Who picks it up?
Stays, I think.
The City of Vista will pick up, but it's essentially the same.
Oh,
I think they're already in the Vista Fire Protection District, isn't that right?
Yes, that's correct. They would detach, but it would be picked up by the City of Vista. But essentially the same stations, same fire departments.
okay. So any challenges in terms of response times, any changes in there?
No, Commissioner.
Okay.
And if any commissioners have any questions at this time, we'll go to comments after public hearing, but any questions from any commissioners? I see none. So we got any public comments? Tammy?
Yes. I have Bob Rawl.
How many do we have? You want to call the next 2 or 3? Just him? Okay.
Good morning to the commission. I'm a 35-year homeowner at 1031 Marine View Drive.
Is his microphone on?
Yeah, I think you just have to speak.
Just get a little closer. Go ahead, sir.
I don't think it's on.
Okay.
There you go, thanks.
Again, good morning. Bob Raw, I'm a 35-year homeowner at 1031 Marine View Drive. I'm not necessarily opposed to this annexation, but I'm opposed to the conditions under which it's being undertaken. That is to be exempt from environmental review while at the same time setting aside adopted and binding conditions of approval that were for the properties by grandfathering in the existing uses in spite of there being existing uses which do not comply and that are causing pending public nuisances. Our issue is that the county inadvertently, through the hire of a poorly trained environmental department employee, inadvertently approved grading next to our septic system, a vertical cut right next to our septic system, and it also, after that, inadvertently approved a cut right next to our reserve area. So we've been 20-some years now that our property has not been buildable after the county, as conditions of the lot split, required removal of the garage and the laundry area and everything else that was on the property. There's a septic system underground there, but it no longer complies because we have encroaching properties next door because they don't meet with this 1 acre requirement. It's 0.8 acres next door. They wanted to build a huge house and get that tax base, so they jammed it right into the side of our septic system. So not only is our property unbuildable, but it's a pending public nuisance, environmental nuisance, and the Director of Environmental Health and the previous Director of Environmental Health concurred, on the record that if that property were to be sold to, say, a family with children that used the plumbing normally there, we would have an active public nuisance. Okay, the only reason it's not is because there's one resident there, and I'm taking up as much space on that 1 acre as down the street. They've got 52 residents in the same area. It's not something that's going to last forever, so and it's not going to go away by ignoring it. It's just not a legitimate action to take an environmental exemption while setting aside carefully considered environmental conditions for the properties that require off-grade construction on the lower elevation properties. So my request is that the project be conditioned. I understand LAFCO does not condition properties, but they are conditioning them if they are agreeing to grandfather in something that cannot legitimately be grandfathered in. Same difference. I'm asking that they require the city to provide a sewer connection or some other solution so that we're not landlocked for sewage disposal. We might skate through, but it's going to be a big problem in the future if there's not a condition for sewer requirement there, and I sell that home. Might not be too many years from now. You're going to have an active problem, and that's been acknowledged. So that's my concern. I notice in the agenda here that it says subsequent written comments generated as a result of the additional outreach are attached. I don't see anything here for me. I haven't had any feedback on a very detailed letter that was provided regarding that is a little more focused than my presentation right now.
Okay, well, we received all the letters. I don't know that we commented on all of them. No. Well, I think we do.
Okay, the fact that it's referenced as being attached here and it is not, that's what caught my attention.
Okay,
So,
it is in our packet, so
okay.
thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Okay, well, and I'll tell you what, I don't know if we can do anything to help you on your issue or not, but contact my office and we'll see if we can look into that septic issue if there's anything that can be done, we're happy to do it. But I think we are conditioning the city of Vista to come up with a specific plan, and that's the time I think it'd be a good idea to go to those meetings and make sure that those issues get raised and hopefully addressed in that plan coming forward.
Okay, but isn't that kind of doing what we've been doing all along, isn't just kicking the can down the road? There's no commitment.
I hope not. I hope not, Bob.
We've
Okay.
had many years of deferring this until the next discretionary decision. This is it.
I'm happy to work with you in my office.
Thank you very much. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Okay. I have a quick question for staff. I guess I think I read it, but are the conditions of grandfathering of all the existing land uses going to be allowed by the city? I guess maybe Mr. Conley comes up if he does. Are the land use zoning, I guess, going to be grandfathered in for the current zoning for these residents?
Yes, we agreed to meet with any resident who's interested in grandfathered existing uses, and we intend to, in the specific plan, adopt the existing county zoning so that they don't lose any of the uses that they're currently.
Okay, good, thank you. Do we have any commissioner comments?
Chair,
Yes.
I have one more speaker.
Oh, I thought, yeah, okay.
Rain Cooper.
There she is, okay.
Rains Cooper of 953 Miramar Drive. I've lived on my property for 46 years, and I've watched the city of Vista develop thousands of acres in a very poorly planned manner. I do not see how the city of Vista meets the requirements, those 8 requirements. We will receive no benefits. And the area that we live in, it's not fully developed. And as Mr. Rawls said, each time someone comes in to develop and you're on a septic system, we're going to have more and more problems with the whole area. The whole quality of life and the roads they want to run through and everything else, I've just seen it for years. Unfortunately, their words are not backed up well by actions. So I am totally opposed to the annexation. Thank you.
All righty, thank you. Any other speakers? Any?
None for me.
No.
You can check in, Michaela.
Michaela, if you got any? Online, okay?
This one doesn't have a name on it, it just says M, from M. So it says, to LAFCO commissioners, the City of Vista Council and Planning Division constantly mislead the constituency while making annexation of San Diego County agricultural A70 land with a minimum of 1 acre lots and rezoned it to less than R1 10,000 square foot minimum, see below. The notice admits that is agricultural land A70 and that is going to break their own zoning regulations of R1 10,000 square feet as they are placing 46 units on 9.2 acres. Also placed a disclaimer that reads, if you challenge this project in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described in this notice or in written correspondence delivered to the City of Vista at or prior to the public hearing. The City of Vista has a history of being deceptive in all of their proposals. The bottom line, the city is destroying zoning laws, good urban planning practices, and is making unsustainable as farmland is disappearing faster than the rainforest under their direction. We are landowners against the Mar Vista Island annexation. The city is creating more islands, which is unlawful under California government law. Government Section Code 5637.5.3, B1, 2, B3, A and B, and B4, A, B, and C, and B5 and 6, Government Code Section 56001, Government Code Section 56033.5, and Government Section 57000, as well as Government Code Section 56064A, C, and D.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, now, do we have any commissioner comments on this item?
I do have a question, yeah. On the staff recommends conditionally approve the proposed reorganization. Can you clarify what you mean by conditionally?
Isn't that the specific plan has to be done within 2 years? Okay.
Yeah, actually, can you put up the slide again that have the special terms of approval for this item? And just give the commission and the audience a chance to look at those. So Commissioner Willis, in addition to the general terms that we condition just about every jurisdictional change, here you have 5 proposal-specific changes, and the one that is in bold, as Priscilla outlined, is our effort to address the concerns that perhaps the gentle person just mentioned, M, about the unknown aspect of what this means to residents in Mar Vista, and that is the commission is calling the question for the City of Vista to proceed with a specific plan for this area to outline their specific objectives, planning, and public improvements. We cannot prescribe to Vista what that should be, but we can call the question. So that's perhaps the most significant term that we've provided, but the others are all merited for consideration too. The grandfathering comment to Mr. Rawls' comment, well, that's what grandfathering does. It allows for non-conforming uses on properties, and as Mr. Connolly mentioned, the city is agreeable to that. And by way of Mechanics Commission, what will occur if you approve this recommendation is Commission Council will develop a term sheet in which we list out all of these conditions, and then Mr. Connolly and/or the city will sign that document, and then it becomes an enforceable document should it need to be enforced going forward.
Okay, Joe.
Clarification then. If we are conditioning, and I heard the planning director saying that they will, I guess, honor all non-conforming uses, does that include this grading from this subdivision that's already taken place?
Probably. I don't know.
Yes.
Okay. Which is something that's going to have to be worked out separately. If we can work it out at all, I'll find out. I'll work on that from the county's perspective.
You'll take care of it.
Yeah, unless the city kicks us out because it's the city's now, if that's the case. But I'm happy to work and see what we can do. If we can, I'm not even sure. So, well, it originally, when this item was brought forward to us, I thought this was incredibly a top-down situation, especially we had all these people here that did not want to be annexed into the city. It seemed that it was more the city of Vista just coming in and saying, hey, we're going to do this. But Mr. Connolly had explained there had been some outreach, but we had asked for more, and thank you very much for doing that. But it's also my understanding from staff that certain island annexation findings are made, 8 in total, that we are obligated by state law to actually approve that. But number 7 out of those 8 is that if the annexed property is receiving benefit from the city. So I'm pleased that LAFCO and Vista staff, they worked together further with the community since our August 1st meeting. They held 2 publicly noticed meetings with the residents for additional input in the decision-making process. Thanks very much for that. I want to thank Mr. Connolly for his time and effort on that and for the grandfathering. And for the next 2 years, when the city prepares to adopt a specific plan for that area, the citizens will have all that time for input. And if they don't like what's going on, like what's happening, I guess, with that specific plan, they still have the grandfather opportunities with their properties. So I'll say thank you very much to everybody. I'll go ahead at this time and make a motion to approve. Is it recommendation number 1? Which recommendation is it here? For staff's recommendation.
Recommendation 1.
Recommendation 1.
I have one last question,
Sure.
Chair. Will we have any further oversight on this there's clearly some environmental concerns. Will we have any further oversight on this?
So our oversight is specific to enforcing the conditions.
I have one.
Sure.
Second discussion. Just for clarification, when does this annexation get recorded? Is it 2 years after the specific plan is adopted, or at the point in time that the conditions are signed?
The former, which will allow the citizens of Mar Vista to be voters within the city of Vista when the specific plan is being prepared and adopted. They will be enfranchised at that point.
Okay, so it's when
Once we get all the signature from the city of Vista that they are agreeing to all of the terms, and we surpass the 30-day reconsideration period.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I don't see any other speakers or comments. Tammy, could you please call roll?
Yes. Commissioner Willis?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara?
Yes.
Commissioner Kate?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderlin?
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner Salas?
Yes.
We have 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item we have is 6B. This is a public hearing as well. I'll ask again if anybody had any ex parte communication on this one. This is the MSR in the city of Escondido. Seeing none. If we could have, this is part 2 of the municipal service review on the city of Escondido. Keith, could you?
Well, thank you.
give
So
some
I will
presentation?
ask Priscilla Mumpower to start us off on the presentation, and then I would like to drill down on some of the public comments that we received before we hand it back to the commission. But Priscilla, if you could start us off.
Yes, thank you, Keith. So the second hearing item today is for the commission to take up the second and final report of a 2-part municipal service review on the Escondido region and specific to covering the city of Escondido. This follows our earlier work in part 1, which covers the special districts in the region. The report was initially presented in draft form in August before proceeding with a formal 45-day public comment period, and returns today in final form. This hearing today allows for the commission to, 1, draw on the final report and go on record in adopting determinations on all factors required within MSR statute, and collectively reflect on LAFCO's growth management interests, and 2, to concurrently allow LAFCO to go forward with a separately required sphere of influence update. As you may recall from staff's presentation in August, the municipal service review has followed a unique path in that Part 2 has been further divided into 2 subparts or documents as shown up on the screen. So the larger of the 2 documents is the municipal service review report that's been prepared by the city via Concordia Homes and covers the full scope of city operations with a data window that falls between fiscal years 2014 through 2018. The smaller of the 2 documents is an addendum prepared by LAFCO staff, which builds and expands on the city report and focuses on topics of elevated interest to the commission in terms of finances and core municipal functions, and those being water, wastewater, and integrated fire protection. The addendum also has its own data window, which mostly falls under fiscal years 2017 through 2021. You'll recall from our draft presentation that the addendum also importantly includes key conclusions and recommendations in step with satisfying the commission task to make a range of determinations under both statute as well as adopted policy. We return today with a final report that builds and adds to the earlier draft. So all of the conclusions and recommendations discussed in August remain, and the revisions are largely technical and involve editorial improvements, but there are a few exceptions which are detailed in the agenda cover, and I will also cover here today. So I'll begin with what remains. So the key conclusions up on the screen remain in play in the final report and headlined by those in bold, such as number 3, and general fund stresses and high debt levels. So the fiscal analysis performed as part of the MSR signals that the City of Escondido's general fund is becoming imbalanced, with the rate of new expenses surpassing the rate of new revenues by more than 1/5, as well as an inability to satisfy their own reserve policy in 4 of the 5 years covered. Number 5, and growth challenges, and this idea of housing that LAFCO focuses on as part of the MSR with regard to providing affordable housing. So Escondido has experienced modest population growth during the addendum period, however, have fallen short in generating new housing relative to new growth, and made evident by a shortfall of 64 annual housing units, compared to the need to build 225 units just to keep up with the expected population growth. And number 8, so the City of Escondido has over a dozen islands within their sphere of influence that are either completely surrounded or substantially surrounded by their jurisdictional boundaries. And as we just saw, these represent service inefficiencies and raise social justice considerations for an estimated cumulative population of more than 12,000 residents. So given this, it would be appropriate for the City of Escondido and LAFCO to coordinate resources in making the city whole. And now this conclusion has been expanded, but I promise to come back to that as well. So moving on to recommendations. Similarly, all the recommendations remain in play in the final report, and headlined by 3, which I will show in bold. Again, I highlight the recommendations that have been revised or added in blue, with a promise to come back to these. So number 1, given its location and proximity to transportation corridors paired with the city's role as a full-service municipality, it would be reasonable to prioritize and direct growth in the region to the City of Escondido as an urban center. Number 7 on the following slide, and drawing from conclusion number 9 on assessing the relationship between the city and Rincon del Diablo, and consistent with staff's recommendation in part 1 of the 2-part MSR, staff affirms its previous recommendation to proceed with adding a governance study of the 2 agencies, and in doing so, independently assess their options to consolidate given the agencies' overlapping boundaries and common service functions. And number 10, which was previously identified as number 9, to proceed with a limited sphere of influence update for the city, with focus on aligning the sphere wherever practical. Also, to defer an otherwise merited comprehensive sphere of influence update for the City of Escondido to a future municipal service review. However, establish a special study area or more, and this includes special study area for the Harvest Hills, previously Safari Highlands project site. Now, as mentioned, the report includes additional conclusions and recommendations as well as revisions, and these are summarized on the next 2 slides, and so I will go over these. And so with respect to additions, so staff has added an additional conclusion identified as number 7, entitled Connecting Escondido's Growth with Regional Influences. So this conclusion discloses that there is a potential disconnect between LAFCO and other regional agencies in applying different growth objectives to the city of Escondido. This conclusion directly ties to the additional recommendation, also shown on this slide, identified as number 2, for LAFCO to prepare an informational report to assess its relationship of its own growth management policies, such as prioritizing the city of Escondido as an urban growth center, with other regional agencies such as SANDAG and their own policies. With respect to revisions, that is on the following slide, staff has revised an existing conclusion that directly ties to comments received by the city of Escondido. So number 8, and I briefly went over it, so addressing the merits of the city of Escondido and LAFCO to annex unincorporated islands and to coordinate those efforts. Well, we've expanded this conclusion to recognize that these efforts should relatedly account for the financial feasibility for the city to assume services and the associated improvements on an island-by-island basis. Now, this revision ties directly to the revision of recommendation number 8, titled Coordinating the Elimination of City Islands, which again recognizes and accounts for the financial feasibility for the city to assume new service responsibilities and potential public improvements. Now, lastly, on the next slide, staff received written comments from over 20 organizations, 13 concerned residents, all expressing their opposition on recommendation identified as number 9B, but now identified as 10B. This recommendation was for LAFCO to proceed with establishing a special study area for the Harvest Hills project site. But all of these comment letters did lead to thoughtful consideration by staff, and the decision to revise or add to the recommendation, now identified as number 10C, which states that LAFCO should proceed with establishing the additional special study areas, but include a condition specific to the Harvest Hill site or others to require additional evaluation of the fire risks and evaluation controls of any action to formally add to the sphere. And so with that lengthy presentation, I hope I was able to capture everything for you all. I will pass it over to Keen.
Thank you, Priscilla, and job well done. And I was just looking at my notes here, Commission. So Priscilla is the 4th staff analyst that we had assigned to this project when it first came to LAFCO a few years ago. So she's done a good job of getting this to you today. So I did want to just drill down a little more on the public comments that we received on the addendum as it's made its way initially in draft form to you a few months ago and now in final form as Priscilla has presented. And all of the comments that we had received up until the date we hit print, if you will, at least as of last Tuesday, are captured in the as one of the appendix or appendices to your addendum. And if you take a look at these comments as a whole, there's really 2 topics that are in play. Okay, one topic deals with this recommendation from LAFCO on the governance study that would take place between or involving the City of Escondido and Rincon del Diablo Municipal Water District. The other topic Priscilla mentioned has to do with this idea of pivoting towards the sphere update and creating 1 or more study areas, and Harvest Hills has certainly become a focal point of comment. So let me just quickly address 2 from LAFCO staff's perspective. So when we first did the part 1 of this study a few years ago, that document concluded, and I believe appropriately so, that it would be a good expenditure of resources for LAFCO to prepare a governance study once this municipal service review was complete, looking at consolidation opportunities, both functional and political, between the City of Escondido and Rincon del Diablo. And then in preparing this document, this addendum, and drawing from the city's own MSR report, staff doubled down on that idea, and certainly we believe that everything we've learned to date further informs and justifies the commission expending resources on a governance study. Now, in making that additional affirmation in part 2, some commenters, beginning with Rincon del Diablo themselves, has pointed out that perhaps a pause would be appropriate. And in Rincon's perspective, and I'll defer to them if they are online or in attendance today, they view a governance study as being premature at this point based on the flux that the city of Escondido finds itself in with respect to its finances, which is something we certainly have pointed out in our addendum, and in particular, and I think reasonably so, Commission, Rincon has pointed out that proceeding with a governance study with the city of Escondido's general fund finances being a variable and needing some remedy might not be the best baseline analysis to then draw conclusions on when you do a governance study. And that is a fair comment. However, and for reasons we detail in the report, we do believe that proceeding with a governance study is merited given you have this dynamic in which two governmental agencies' boundaries overlap to a great extent and have common service functions that overlap to a great extent. That said, Commission, you control the timing of any project that spawns off of a municipal service review. And while you have seen fit to add the governance study as a priority, not a high priority, but as a priority to our current work plan, you very well may choose to take up Rincon's suggestion and either hit pause or push down the priority ranking of this governance study as you see fit. And it just so happens we will be having a quarterly check-in on the work plan a little later on today. And of course, the new fiscal year is not that far away, and we're going to be preparing a new work plan for next fiscal year soon. And it's safe to say this governance study, even if we started it right now, and we haven't, even though it's on our work plan, it's not something we've started yet because we're still in the service review process. It's very fair to say this is at least a 2-year effort. So that's topic 1. And then on topic 2, yes, LAFCO staff has, again, come back to the commission with this recommendation that it makes sense to us that when you pivot towards the sphere of influence update, which parenthetically we were going to bring to you as the next item, but we've punted to another meeting, that it would make sense to create one or more special study areas as placeholders for more discussion. And we've purposely at staff identified this Harvest Hills project site as one of those places we think a special study area makes sense. And we did so because we knew that it was an area of interest to a number of parties, and that proved true in the number of comments we received, on the recommendation. Now, Priscilla has appropriately covered one of our approaches in addressing the comments from the residents, from nonprofit organizations who are taking umbrage with the idea that we are recommending a special study area for Harvest Hills, is that we are further defining our recommendation that should the commission proceed with a special study area for that place of the world, that it be further conditioned that we do additional independent evaluation of fire risk and evacuation controls consistent with what we have heard from many commenters as a term of any consideration of actually adding it to the sphere of influence, formally adding it to the sphere of influence over the next 60 months. I also want to address, there's been this theme in many of the emails that by offering this recommendation that we are somehow shortchanging due process and we are making it easier for the proponents of Harvest Hills, which is Concordia Homes, and I believe we have a representative in the back, Jeff Mayer, with Southwest Strategy, who can speak on behalf of the project itself. But one of the themes that we've heard in these emails is that staff is somehow making it easier in deviating from known processes in recommending a special study area. I just want to point for the record, Commission, that is not true. That in fact it is the practice of this Commission to create special study areas for spheres of influence when you see that there is a potential relationship that merits further discussion, and you want to create a placeholder for those discussions to continue over the next 60 months without the requirement that a new municipal service review be prepared. In fact, we just did one a few meetings ago when we were looking at the Ramona Municipal Water District sphere of influence, and we created a special study area as a placeholder for the Cummings Ranch project. So I certainly believe it's a good practice, and it's a practice that we are recommending you employ in this particular situation. And I would just, for the benefit of the audience, also telegraph that Harvest Hills is not going to be by itself when we come to you with a sphere update and recommend special study areas. There's a few others. One, for example, might be, I think it's Sager Ranch. So there are others, but we knew that Harvest Hills moves the needle, and we wanted to be clear up front that that's on our mind. So you have a final addendum before you commission that we believe satisfies your duty under statute to independently assess the City of Escondido, its service capacities, and the needs for those services going forward. It includes the determinative statements that you need to address under state law. We would recommend, as part of option 1, that you formally accept the addendum, which in doing so you attest to its completeness, and then as part of option 1, you also adopt the draft resolution that's before you that would codify the addendum's written determinations. So with that, Chair, I think we are ready for any questions as you proceed with the public hearing.
All right, Keen, thank you very much. Do we have any questions before we go to the public comments on the presentation? Barry?
Yeah, could you bring that up on the screen? The one that you had, was it 10C that you added on, or 9C? After you got comp 10C? Okay, could you bring that back for the screen? Please, so we can take a look at that again. If you can get there eventually. Oh, it's there? Oh, it's there, okay. Okay, gotcha. It's kind of hard to read, but anyway.
So 10C says establishing a special study area for Harvest Hills and any subsequent request to add to the city's sphere of influence should be conditioned on further evaluation of potential fire risks and evacuation controls.
Okay. The concerns that a lot of these groups had, organizations had, did that address their concerns? Is that one of the things that you're trying to do?
Staff is trying to address those concerns via 10C by stating explicitly that if we establish a special study area for Harvest Hills, or there are any other subsequent amendments that come forward, that we would specifically look into fire evacuation controls and the fire risks, something that has been brought to our attention via many letters, as you saw in the appendices.
Okay. In terms of the study area, it seems like that's one of the key issues here is the study area, that they're concerned how that's going to happen, what's going to happen with that. That's where a lot of the input has been. Okay. Yes, sir. Okay. So, all right. Well, I guess we'll go through, move forward tentatively. I guess.
Okay. We got more questions, Joe, and then David.
Yes, back up to 10C after reading it now twice. Your evacuation and fire issues, are those the only two issues that are going to be taken up in this study area?
No, as part of proposal processing, we typically look at finances. It depends on what services they're requesting, but if they were to annex into the city of Escondido, then we would be looking at fire, we would be looking at water, wastewater, finances as part of the proposal, just as we did, for example, with the Mar Vista reorganization, where we took a look at all of those city services. And so what we're explicitly saying is we will take a look specifically into those evacuation controls which are being called into question.
And you say we're going to be doing that, is it only once after an application has been submitted, or when?
Correct. So if there's a proposal that comes forward.
All right. Commissioner Drake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to express my appreciation to Purcell Von Power and to Keene Simons for responding to the Rincon letter that we had submitted. It was about 8 to 10 pages of more current detail. I appreciate the effort that the staff did in terms of incorporating those changes and making a couple of significant changes that were to the advantage of Rincon. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
I have one more comment.
You already did. Go ahead.
I'd like it too. Can we put Tennessee back up again? I'm hung up on that like everybody else is. And this basically goes to your answer to my question, is that it says should be conditioned on further evaluation on potential. Could we put that in, should be conditioned on further evaluation and specifically potential fire risks and controls? So it's not interpreted unless I interpreted it, but those were the only issues that were going to be looked at.
So what word are you changing or attempting?
Should be conditioned on further evaluation and specifically potential fire risks and specific,
So the word "and" inserted before.
and specifically potential fire risk and evaluation controls.
I don't see any, that doesn't make any changes, just, okay, more specifies, I guess. Okay.
Well, because when I read it as those were the only two issues that were really going to be analyzed.
Oh, okay. I think, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
All right.
No more.
And
So if we make a motion now, are we including that amended?
that would be the appropriate motion.
Okay.
If you're good with it.
Do we have any other comments? I'll make a motion.
Let me find out.
I'll make a motion.
Do we have any other comments from any of our commissioners online? Mr. Kate, did you have, you're kind of leaning in, I can see you. No, we haven't done public comment yet. So, we can make a motion. You want to have a motion?
Mr. Chair, Brandon here.
Yes.
The staff has done a great job of identifying all of the issues and putting the spotlight on what needs to happen for this thing to proceed. So I'm very comfortable with their work. They've been very diligent. And I think that there's a lot of give staff time to continue to work on this, as well as time for input from all agencies and people involved in the process.
All right, Andy, thank you. Okay, we'll go to public comment, and then we'll come back to commissioners if we have any other statements or questions.
One speaker, Chair, is Jeff Meyer.
Jeff. And do we have anybody online or any email comments or anything? No? Okay.
Good morning, LAFCO Commissioners. My name is Jeff Meyer. I'm here today on behalf of Concordia Homes. I'm here to read out a letter into the meeting record. Dear LAFCO Commissioners, as you know and have discussed with us, Harvest Hills prepared the Citywide Municipal Services Review, MSR, on behalf of the City of Escondido that is currently being considered for adoption. This citywide MSR was initiated and fully funded by Harvest Hills and prepared by our consultant, Rick Engineering. The document was contemplated by all parties to be attached to the Harvest Hills final EIR as part of its approval and path to annexation. Concordia Homes has been diligently pursuing entitlements for Harvest Hills since 2013. During this time, we have also worked diligently to facilitate all of the revisions that have been suggested by LAFCO staff pertaining to the MSR and SPEAR update. We've also attempted to expedite and follow up on all of the updated information required of the City of Escondido to complete the document that is now ready to be finalized. Back in April of 2022, we were approached by LAFCO staff and asked if we would allow the MSR to be detached from our project and presented to the board as a standalone document. While we recognize the risk that all of our effort and expense in preparing this citywide document could be taken advantage of if the document were bifurcated from our EIR, we were assured that our work, effort, and expense could equitably be preserved through the creation of a special study area for Harvest Hills. This would allow this project, SPEAR and annexation, to come forward over the next 5 years without the need to re-prepare another document when we have resolved the issues with the City of Escondido that have impeded Harvest Hills from moving forward to this point. We are very much in favor of this option as the only equitable solution to allow this MSR to move forward without Harvest Hills, which is not yet ready to come forward, but we hope soon will be. The comments we've heard suggesting that Harvest Hills is somehow getting, quote, fast-tracked or getting, quote, a free ride could not be further from the truth. We paid for and worked diligently on the very document you are now considering, and we worked fervently with nearly 9 years pursuing entitlements in the city of Escondido, and we are continuing to respond with solutions to every new roadblock that has been laid before us. We very much look forward to bringing forward a project in Harvest Hills that the city of Escondido is thrilled about, and that you see the tremendous benefit of. However, in the meantime, we respectfully request the board to approve what is before it, which is not the merits of our project, but LAFCO staff's recommendation to establish a special study area for Harvest Hills. Sincerely, at Concordia Homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, appreciate it. No other comments? I'll ask one more time. No?
No, Chair.
Okay, Mayor McNamara of Escondido.
I would like to say that I'm very much supportive of approving this moving forward. I think that there's been a lot of people who are for or against some of the things that LAFCO will be looking into, and I think they fear that LAFCO might either prove or disprove what their argument, their side of the cause. We make a comment about, for example, fiscal insecurity. Well, that's very easily explained. Like many entities, Escondido participated in the CalPERS, and if you're not familiar, CalPERS stopped making their investment returns back in the year 2000. Sacramento didn't demand that shortfall be made up. It was, and previous councils avoided that for many years. And so now the bill is due and we're going to have to pay it. If we don't increase revenue, which is Measure E, and we'll find that out tomorrow, okay? If that approves, then that fiscal problem will go away. If it doesn't, it just means we'll be reducing services. You know, when people talk about the islands, since I became elected mayor, I felt we should annex those islands for the very reasons that were just pointed out here. But the pushback was, well, you know, the people who live in those islands don't conform to city standards. And my thought was, well, we'll just grandfather them in, and over time, eventually hook them up to sewer or whatever the city standard is. But at least give them the right to vote for the future of the city. It's no secret we have some differences on Rincon as to whether or not we should have a unifying effort for water, and we all know that water is one of the biggest things in Southern California, one of the biggest concerns. And so having an agency like LAFCO maybe show us, an independent agency like LAFCO, show us the truth, if you will, or give an independent analysis, I think that's important. I mean, and even Harvest Hills. At the end of the day, the city council will have to vote on that. It won't be a LAFCO issue other than whether or not they approve the annexation. So I'm very much, I'm not afraid of this analysis. I'm not afraid of this MSR. I think it will show us, I think it will expose perhaps viewpoints that depending on which side of the fence you're on, that we may not be looking at. And that's where I'm kind of excited about. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Paul. I don't see any other comments here. Is there a motion?
I started on the motion, and we'll continue on that motion to accept.
Okay, and does that accept, there's two parts to recommendation one. Does that include both of those and the McKenzie change?
Alternative one.
Alternative?
That includes both of them.
Includes both of them and with the plus the
addendum.
Okay.
With the change in wording that Joe wanted.
And was Mr. Cate going to make a second?
Sure.
Okay. I thought you had it earlier, but thank you very much. Hey, just a real quick comment before we go to the roll call. You know, I think this is a good way to do it moving forward. We are not, you know, this is not an approval for Harvest Hills at this point in time. We just know it's coming, and it's been in process for a while, and I think it's prudent that we look at particularly the wildfire and the evacuations of this area, particularly when we're doing this MSR, so we don't have to start all over. So I think it's a prudent recommendation moving forward. However, I do have one little comment for staff. I noticed in the recommendations of this document here for the the municipal service review, part 2, and the recommendations. Recommendation number 3 is San Diego LAFCO will coordinate with SANDAG to develop current building estimates of the city of Escondido and the sphere of influence, and include impacts of Senate Bill 9. I would hope that SANDAG is also working with the city of Escondido on those build-out estimates, because what I've seen in SANDAG and some of their build-out estimates, they're put houses wherever they think they'll fit. And it's not necessarily true with the local jurisdictions as to how that works out. So I know you're probably going to do it anyway, but I just want to make sure that we're working with the entity as well when we're looking at the build-out estimates of those communities, not just SANDAG. So with that, we still have a motion, no other comments. And a second, Tammy, could we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanderlin?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kate?
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Yes.
Commissioner Salas?
Yes.
We have 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to 7A. This one is a business item, I think. Yes, and on the business calendar, we have 7A. Do any commissioners have any ex parte communications they want to disclose on 7A? This is the out-of-agency services work plan, or actually it's being presented for discussion and feedback ahead before it goes out for public review. Yes, Mr. Trade.
Yes, I got a call from Chris Brown.
Okay. Any others? Mr. McKenzie? Miss?
Yes, I got a call this morning at 7:20 from Director Dr. Chavez from Tri-State.
Okay. Any other ex parte? No. Okay. King, you want to take it away?
I will just briefly start this item. Hold on. Staff is flagging at me. Oh, sorry.
Oh, Mary had an ex parte? Thanks. Sorry.
Yes. I got a text message from Roger Chavez.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
So just clarify, this is not the action item we're doing.
This is a business item. No, this is for discussion only. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right.
So very good, commission and attendees. So I'm going to just make a few comments on 7A, and then Carol Hieronymon's going to actually provide the presentation. But I want to emphasize a couple of points up front. As I mentioned when we were doing the agenda review, we have received 2 letters late last week, one from Vista Fire, one from Otay Water District, that requested, among other things, that the commission table this plan discussion, and for reasons that they've provided in their letter, but for the most part, for reasons that were first articulated in a separate email issued earlier in the week from the California Special Districts Association in Sacramento. Now, I can't speak to why CSDA is so adamantly concerned with the local policy here in San Diego, but I do take the concerns of our local special districts seriously, and just want to note up front, I do believe it's important that we start this discussion today. It is just a discussion, so that staff can benefit from your feedback. You are, after all, the commission. And so staff can take your direction, or rather your comments, your feedback, your thoughts on this item as we continue with a stakeholder process. That does include going back to the Special Districts Advisory Committee. That does include going to the City's Advisory Committee. So this is the start of a discussion. And I'm going to ask Carol to formalize what we think that discussion could be for your Thoughts Commission.
Thank you, King. Good morning, Commissioners. So before you today is a draft policy to provide formal guidance to LAFCO and its existing tasking statute, specifically Government Code Section 56133, which allows LAFCOs to regulate cities and special districts that look to provide services outside of their boundaries via contracts or agreements. Now, this item comes to you by way of our adopted work plan and is being considered a high priority project given the increasing volume of out-of-agency services that activities that we are seeing here in San Diego County, which are either from formal approval requests or are being seen through elimination in municipal service reviews. Now, a recent example is the considerable amount of out-of-agency services being done by the resource conservation districts, which came to light in a recent municipal service review, and which led to the creation of an ad hoc committee to help bring these agencies in line with statute, but more importantly with one another. Now, as for the draft report, it largely sets out to reflect and refine existing practices at LAFCO that have been evolving for some time and are marked by 5 specific headliners that you see here on the screen. Now, specifically, this draft would make explicit the Commission's policy preference is to take up out-of-agency service requests on an exception basis and when otherwise merited service expansions cannot be accommodated through preferred annexations. Now, this draft would also establish local definitions on what constitutes new and extended services for purposes of implementing the underlying statute in San Diego County, highlighted by tying extended to an intensification of existing services marked by zoning changes. Now, the draft would also establish local exemptions, and it would make clear that LAFCO determines when state or locally created exemptions apply. And lastly, the draft would continue to delegate authority to the executive officer to approve out-of-agency service requests that are tied to public health or safety threats, and this includes deferring to the executive officer to determine what constitutes a public health and safety threat. Now, to conclude my presentation, I would like to remind you all that this is for discussion and feedback today, and alongside with staff looking to initiate a formal public review and comment period with a goal to have a finalized version ready for action as soon as February of 2023. Now, this concludes my presentation, and I look forward to your feedback. Thank you for your time.
Okay, I'll tell you what, why don't we go into public comment, and we'll see what comes out of there, and then we can go into discussion. So,
We have 3 chair,
okay.
and Jeffrey Scott, Tom Kennedy, and Heather Conklin.
Okay, if I sit down? Sure. Turn the mic on. So I hope you'll indulge me, and if not, Supervisor Desmond, just gavel me down and throw me out.
You got 3 minutes.
So I've had the pleasure and really honor of representing elected officials and special districts in San Diego County and Southern California for over 40 years. And I believe that, you know, the elected officials are underappreciated for the hard work they do, okay? And I was not asked to do this, but on behalf of my client anyway, but I would like to point out and publicly thank Supervisor Desmond for his help in getting the behavioral health unit in Tri-City. And I think that is a good example of the county and a special district working together to get something accomplished. And without your help, I don't think we would have got it done. And notwithstanding my opposition to this proposed change, I want to compliment your executive director on the excellent work that he does, and also your general counsel on the excellent advice she provides. So with that, I'm here on behalf of Tri-City in opposition to the proposed changes in the policy. I also serve as general counsel for Grossmont Healthcare District. I've done that for over 30 years. I've also been general counsel for Fallbrook Regional Healthcare District and represented districts for probably over 40 years, and I represented Vallecillas Water District in San Marcos for over 35 years as a general counsel. So I wanted to, since we're passing out things for the record, and we referred to this, I wanted to submit for the record the CSDA email that was circulated to the special districts throughout San Diego County last Thursday. And I would invite all of your attention to taking a look at it. In the words of CSDA, the draft policy continues to propagate a disputed interpretation of California Government Code Section 56133 related to extraterritorial service delivery. And the draft policy seeks to vest in the executive officer new executive authority to adjudicate the applicable exemptions provided within section 56133. And because the email arrived like last Thursday, Dave Grossmont, Fallbrook boards really haven't had a chance to weigh in on this. But I really think, if we're honest, that I don't think you have to look any further than the meeting and really the chaos and unfairness that ensued. It really would ensue with this policy. We don't have to look any further than last month.
Okay, your time's up. Thank you. We got it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Tammy?
Tom Kennedy.
And then who?
Heather Conklin.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all in person. I think that I'm Tom Kennedy with Rainbow Water, but also a member of the Special District Advisory Committee. This comes down to the state legislature having granted special districts and cities certain authorities to make certain determinations without LAFCO's approval, and the language of this policy, which kind of mirrors the effort to change the statute a couple of years back, takes that away. Whenever somebody feels they're having some power they have taken away, you're going to get resistance. Does LAFCO need to do something about out-of-agency service agreements? Sure. I mean, we've had the disputes that people here speaking today. I think that it's worthy to take up the matter and look through it, although I do think that some additional thought and clarity needs to be brought into place, because there are a lot of small one parcel, two parcel between water and wastewater providers that happen that are going to create additional workload at LAFCO. So we should look at trying to clarify those boundaries of where this applies and doesn't apply. But I think the other aspect that's important to consider here is how do you enforce it. So we have situations where there are cease and desist letters sent to particular districts that nothing actually changes, so I'm not sure what could be done in the policy to bolster enforcement capabilities, because if you create a new policy and people ignore it, you're right back where you started. So that's just my comments.
Thanks, Tom.
Good morning. My name is Heather Conklin, and I currently serve as the board president for Mission Resources Conservation District, which has been providing natural resources conservation technical assistance, education, programming, and services in San Diego County for over 75 years. I'm deeply concerned about the impacts to real essential services that sustain the public from this draft policy under consideration today. The current draft policy seeking extra statutory authority for LAFCOs based on a disputed interpretation of Government Code Section 56133 is a missed opportunity to work collaboratively with stakeholders to review and identify problems with this policy and engage in thoughtful discussions about what's needed to promote orderly growth and the provision of efficient and effective public services. As such, this draft policy will have serious unintended consequences with the way it's currently written. For the reasons discussed by previous speakers and outlined in detail, with information provided by the California Special Districts Association, this draft policy circumvents processes to ensure good governance and transparency by allowing the executive officer, a non-elected position, to unilaterally interpret state law and make determinations outside of the The lack of transparency in the current process provided by this draft policy goes against the principles of good governance and will have real consequences to the public. For example, under San Diego LAFCO's draft policy, essential services like water conservation technical assistance to help homeowners and property owners save water may no longer be available and be able to be provided to the public. Denials of out-of-boundary services under this draft policy through the reinterpretation of exemptions under subdivision E of section 56133 will deny the public of much-needed conservation efforts like water conservation services during a severe statewide drought when the region's already being impacted and the region's already feeling the effects of climate change. This will also negatively impact the region's ability to meet local climate action goals and state mandates. I also want to highlight that services impacted by this draft policy are not limited to utility services and also include important technical assistance services such as technical assistance to support our agricultural producers here in this county. And those technical assistance services require significant experience,
training, and depth of knowledge. They're not easily replaceable and may be unable to be provided by another agency or entity, therefore depriving the public of these much-needed services. As elected or appointed public officials, we are tasked with ensuring accountability and serving as stewards of public benefit and public trust. It is for these reasons and the reasons provided by the others here today that I respectfully ask the Commission to table its discussion and consideration of this draft policy and redirect staff to take a new look and informed and inclusive approach to developing any draft policy regarding the provision of out-of-boundary services. Thank you.
Wow, perfect timing. Thank you. Okay, Keen, do you want to respond, and then we'll go to discussion?
So, and thank you, speakers, for your comments. Implementing 56133 is a challenge in all counties in California. I can speak to having been the executive officer in 2 Bay Area counties, so there's always going to be some friction. But I want to pick up on the last speaker's comments, albeit in a different way. The policy is about good governance. We need to set our rules with respect to how the public agencies proceed with what should be limited exceptions in which annexations may not be available. So then on a limited basis, when agencies feel the need to come and provide services outside their boundary, they do so in a way that the legislature anticipates. And guess what? That means, for good or for bad, we didn't write the legislation, although your former colleague Mike Gotch did, and that is that they go through LAFCO and either they get a formal approval from the commission or that they check in and to determine if one of these exemptions appropriately apply. So it's not about LAFCO denying services to anyone. What you do within your district is boundary is what you do within your district boundary. But if you feel the need to serve outside that boundary, well, the reality is there is a process. This policy attempts to provide some guidelines not only for the public but for your staff's benefit.
Thank you, Keen. You know, this is a draft, and so this input is good. This is not in stone. It's a draft, and it's going to come back to the commission. And quite frankly, I'm glad to see it because, you know, at LAFCO we're getting, you know, disputes dumped in our laps of agencies that aren't getting along or just can't work it out on their own, which is supposed to be the first step. So I would love it if everybody would collaboratively work out these issues. But what happens when one side says, well, you know, they start finger pointing, then it ends up in our laps. And so what we're trying to do is make it policies and processes in place so that we can resolve these types of disputes maybe ahead of time, and people are aware of them. Ahead of a huge hospital district said they didn't even know they had to go get permission or anything like that. So we obviously need to do a better job of getting out, you know, what the role of LAFCO is and what the role of the districts are. And if you want to collaboratively work on something in between yourselves, hallelujah, do it. But when it comes to us, then we want to make sure there's policies in place. And I'll tell you, one of my comments is, they also came from Valley Center Municipal Water District from Gary Arant, said the decisions shouldn't be final and they should be appealable to the committee. I agree with that. I think that would be my input. It's like, okay, you know, King's a good guy, he's very smart, but if there's, and maybe not all of them are appealable, maybe certain ones, I'm not really clear where that should go. But, you know, we've had, even with conservation districts, you know, potentially, you know, going on each other's turfs. And so now we've got, you know, with Tri-City and Palomar Health, you know, contracts have been signed, the health emergencies have been declared, and it's in our lap now. So we'd like to, if there's processes we can put in place that make it easier, because yes, sometimes services can be, as Heather mentioned, you know, helping other people, you know, conserve water, you know, countywide would be, you know, a good initiative, but maybe you know, that might be an easier one. So I'm, you know, I'd like to see this brought back. It's not going to be voted on yet, and we want to have the input from all the districts as how we can all play together well in the sandbox. Is really what it comes down to. And if we've got some rules and policies in place, and they're not going to be perfect, and this can be changed at a later date, but we want. So I'm actually glad this is coming forward, and I'll be supportive. There's no action to be taken on this today. But do we have any other comments or changes or ideas from any of the other, well, I got one more here. Sorry, I'm rambling. But, you know, one of the issues that came forward that we have between the hospital districts is they weren't able to negotiate a deal, so they went elsewhere. I don't know that that should be a criteria for being able to jump over to another district or not. And if that should be wholly that we weren't able to go negotiate with somebody else, so we're going out of district to negotiate, to me, might be prudent, but not always, I think, the first go-to. There should be other avenues or other maybe kind of stopgaps to say, well, they wouldn't negotiate with us, so we're out of here. That I don't care for that particular approach either. So those would be my comments, that we have some sort of, we look into that negotiation or issue or monetary issue, and then also that things are appealable to the board, the full commission, and kind of leave it at that. So I'll stop my rambling and let some other commissioners jump in if there are any. Thanks.
Just one question right away, Mr. Chair. Keen, what kind of time frame are we looking at for the discussion on this ongoing?
Well, certainly there's no hard deadline. Carol mentioned this could theoretically come back to the commission as early as February, but I'm guessing it will probably be a little longer than that. You want to check in again with the cities and special districts, and I'm guessing the commission may have more than one meeting in a more formal discussion to vet this out.
Okay. Just one other question to the staff in general. Did we get recommendations from other special districts on how they want to see the wording maybe changed in some way, or did you get any thoughts on that?
Not at this point, although this is coming to you after a few years of discussing the topic with the cities and special districts. So your staff has been filtering all these comments over the last 36 months into the version that is before you. But to be clear, this is your staff's version that we have signed off on based on that filtering. We'd love to put some other things. Michaela mentioned, what about fines? I said, well, maybe not yet, but nevertheless, this is a work in progress.
Since you brought that up, I'd also add in some type of enforcement. How do we enforce this stuff? And if we even can, I don't even know if LAFCO has that authority. Anyone else? Mr. King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would just second your comment on the appealable nature of the decisions. Or make sure they go to a body, a governing body in full if there are issues that need to be worked out. Thank you.
Yeah, Jim.
The quick and easy one is one under 56-133, you have a set of 4 different exemptions. I think those probably should be added to our policy. And then I have concerns about delegating approval requests. That is under 56-133. It goes to the commission unless the commission delegates to the EO. And if we leave that delegate in, I would like to put a time frame that is something that comes to the commission on a yearly basis, because your commission changes, and what the commission 3 years ago thought was a great idea may not be the same mindset of this one. And I served on the commission here for a number of years, plus as an alternate and plus on the advisory committee. And I don't remember this ever coming forward that, as an action item, that we hereby delegate this to the EO. It may have been just standard, operating procedure, but I think it needs to be specifically agendized and discussed at the January meeting. Because when you have your new, commissioners in. So that's one of them. And then also as to what you indicated, that any decision made by the executive officer, it needs to be appealable to the commission. I mean, every other agency, you have an administrative permit or something from the planning commission that can always be appealed to the city council or the Board of Supervisors, so.
And I don't know if it has to be everything is appealable. I don't know, maybe there's a look at that, maybe there's certain ones that,
Well,
maybe all of them, maybe not.
We're talking about specifically out of service. So I think they need the appeal right.
Okay, I do too, but I don't know if it should be for on every appeal or.
Well, hopefully we don't have that many.
Hey, they're coming fast and furiously here lately. But I mean, that's for them to work out in the draft and get other input from other. This is just input at this point.
And then the other comment was when it's noticed to the applicant, I think it also needs to be noticed to the alternate service provider. That's what's going on. So
Well, hopefully they already did that in the first place. Okay, yeah. You're right. Okay. Andy's got his hand up.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I agree with what's been said, especially your approach on this thing as it is moving forward is not going to be cast in stone right now. I believe that we're on the right track. This is not a new issue for us. As Keenan mentioned, there's been several considerations about changing the whole thing. So once again, San Diego LAFCO is kind of on point with this, with special districts and others who are looking at what we're doing and how we're going about doing it. So I think that, at least for me, the overall goal is to keep this issue in our Hatfields and McCoy's potential off the books is to put this back into the public forum and take it out of the political process and put it into LAFCO's hand as a third-party neutral. I don't think there should be any real fear on this as we move forward. If there is, it certainly can be worked out, negotiated, if you will, through the process. Thank you.
And hopefully the special districts will come forward to us with ideas of how you can play together better, as opposed to we're just inflicting rules upon you. Come up with your own ideas, let us know, because I think that's going to be very important, and we'll get that hopefully inserted into the draft, and we don't get this on our laps anymore, so, or fewer times. Thank you. I don't see any other commissioners with hands up or any comments, so this is the discussion item only. Keen work with all the special districts, try to get input from everybody, particularly from people, from the people that are opposing it and for it, and how we can get through these issues. Yes?
I think we have one email comment.
One? Okay, go for it.
Okay, this one's from Jim Elliott. He says, I am Jim Elliott, Vice President of the Vista Fire Protection District Board of Directors. Our district provides fire and EMS services to an unincorporated area roughly east of the city of Vista. Executive Officer Simons and I had a good conversation about this item in our related letter on Friday. I believe Mr. Simons can explain our concerns about this item and how out-of-agency services are essential to fire and EMS services within our district. We are very concerned about any action that might jeopardize service to our 20,000 residents. Thank you for your consideration and understanding of the importance of this item to our district. Although I'm not able to attend the meeting today, I would be happy to discuss our concerns should you or your staff have any questions in the future.
Thanks, and certainly we don't want to put anybody at more fire risk for this. So,
But isn't that what's stated under, in this document under 3B? You're not subject to conditional review, services involving fire protection?
Correct, and Mr. Elliott had some other concerns, but as he mentioned, we had a good conversation, and I will certainly incorporate his thoughts into future drafts as I work with other stakeholders through Carol.
Yeah, you're right, it's already in there, that it doesn't apply. Okay, that was it for 7A. Hopefully we get a lot of input from the special districts on how to move this forward, on any plan that works for all of us. Okay, 7B, this is the quarterly progress report adopted work plan.
Thank you, Chair. As mentioned, this is your quarterly check-in on the work plan. I will stand by the staff report, but if there were any comments or questions on projects underway, we are here to address.
Do you have any questions or comment by any of the commissioners? You must be doing everything very well, team. So things are going wonderfully. No questions, unless you got somebody else.
No, this is a note for you to say about this item.
I have to tattle on Commissioner McNamara for leaving early.
And Commissioner Becker's
And now, and Commissioner Becker is now able to vote. Okay, so we got Commissioner Becker in. Okay, thank you. Don't leave early, it's going to get announced. Okay, all right. So no comments on 7B. Thank you very much. Work plan's going smoothly. And 7C, this is the, what is it? Is this one we're leaving out, Holly? Is this you?
It's me.
Okay.
I'll try to make it brief. I do have a set of slides that will pull up. You've got the more lengthy memo in front of you in the packet that explains some upcoming changes. And if you could just go to the next slide. This basically has to do with the governor announced that he anticipates, he's already announced he's going to be ending the executive order declaring the state of emergency for COVID effective February 28th, 2023. So giving agencies some lead time to accommodate the changes and folks' schedules now as we return to in-person meetings. So before COVID, if you think back that far, if somebody, a commissioner wanted to participate in a meeting remotely, that was allowed, provided that where the location where the commissioner was located remotely was posted on the agenda in advance, 72 hours in advance, and also that that location was open to the public. So, you know, if you were calling in from vacation on a cruise ship, you couldn't do it because that's really not open to the public. On the other hand, if you were at the Cal Cities League conference or some conference in a hotel room and you could take the meeting and phone in from the hotel lobby, as long as that was posted, you could do it. Well, the governor's order back in March of 2020 suspended those rules and now has allowed everybody to participate remotely this entire time. But with the ending of that executive order, which is what allowed the remote participation, that is going to end. And the legislature, seeing this coming, passed a law that has made some changes to that prior law, and I just want to go over that with you. Next slide, please. Basically, now, folks can participate remotely in two situations. One is called just cause, and one is an emergency circumstance, and I'll explain those briefly. But if you fall under one of those two exceptions, you now can participate remotely, provided other criteria are met. And if those are met, you don't have to list your location on the agenda, and you don't have to have your place open to the public. So this allows some flexibility, but there are limits on it. So essentially, what I did here in this matrix is we laid out sort of the differences about the default rule where there's no emergency, and the default rule where the emergency is declared, and that will be the default rule from now until March the 1st of 2023, provided each agency continues to make their 30-day findings. So if you make a 30-day finding, you get to take advantage of that second column. But the new rules in 2023, if you don't have that in place, is the just cause and emergency circumstances rule. So one of the biggest changes is going to be you can participate. You must participate using audio visual only. You cannot only phone in. You must participate, and importantly for folks on Zoom even now, you have to keep your camera on. So you can't get around this by having your camera on or connecting via camera capability, but turning it off. It must remain on, except for when you need to recuse yourself, or obviously during a break. So it needs to remain on. The other thing that's important is if a commissioner is participating in this manner, we have to make the same opportunity available for the public. So if a commissioner can participate remotely, so too must the public, and that'll be on that'll be on us as staff to ensure that we've set up a remote meeting capability for the public to participate. And that remote meeting participation includes both a call-in component and a visual component. So it can be both it can be either Zoom or it can be via call-in while having a live remote streaming like we do via YouTube. Currently, LAFCO actually does both, enables both, I believe. And the other thing is to, beforehand, if you called in and there was any problem on your phone or anything, the meeting just went forward. Here, if there's any problem on the audio-visual participation of the public, the meeting must stop. So if the internet goes down, for some reason there's a technical difficulty and it's not streaming on YouTube, and that was the streaming method, the meeting has to stop for everyone. So, next slide, dude.
I'm sorry, Holly, can I interject?
Yes.
I'm sorry, did I miss something? What's the definition of just cause?
Just cause is defined as, let me pull it up here. There's a specific...
So I didn't miss it?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
There's a specific, you're asking, perfect timing. It means there's 4 things that qualify. You have a child care or caregiving need of a child, a parent, a grandparent, grandchild, and it goes on, and it's in the memo about the specific familial relationships that qualify, that requires you to participate remotely. The second is you've got a contagious illness. I guess if you're contagious but feeling well enough to participate, you can. The third is, interestingly, a need related to a physical or mental disability, and it doesn't really expound on that. And the fourth is if you're traveling while on official business of the commission or another state or local agency. So no more participating while on vacation. The travel needs to be related to public agency duties. That's just cause. And as this chart indicates, let's see, next slide. I think, there we go. You are limited to 2 uses of just causes per calendar year, each commissioner. And the emergency circumstance, which has no absolute limit, I mean, it has a relative limit, which I'll talk about in a minute. That means a physical or family medical emergency that prevents you from attending in person. And on that one, you can't use it for 3 consecutive months. You cannot use you can't miss 20% of the regular meetings of your body in a calendar year. Or if you meet less than 10 times, then you can't use more than 2 instances of these. LAFCO generally meets at least 10 times, right? Generally, that's our schedule. So that's what you have to keep in mind. Now, procedurally, how do you do it? You need to let staff know, you need to let the commission know. For the emergency circumstance, you don't need permission. Pardon me, I flipped it here. For the just cause, you don't need advance permission from the commission, but you do need to let staff know so they can post it. For emergency circumstance, you do need to notify staff as immediately as possible, and that will need to be taken up and voted on at the meeting to permit it. And when you ask for it, it does need to be in writing, no more than 20 words, and you don't need to disclose any, you can just describe it generally, you don't need to disclose any private information. So if you've got any more questions that memo doesn't answer, let me know. I'm happy to talk to you later. I know folks have got some time constraints, but otherwise, that's it.
Is there like a 1-page document you could create for us that just kind of outlines what those parameters are?
Yeah, we can create a cheat sheet that will
Yes.
describe what they
Thank
are,
you.
and then also tell you who to contact when you need to invoke one, and what to do. A
Perfect.
checklist.
A checklist, thank you, yes, Lynn, if we could have that,
Will
yes.
that incorporate your slides? Because I was going to ask for a copy of your slides. A little more.
Oh, I'll circulate the slides too, and, but the checklist might will actually even be simplified over that matrix. Yes, I'll circulate it for all.
Email it out to us, and if you could, the next meeting, have it in front of all of us, so that we have it, so we can hopefully use it for all our other meetings we have. David?
Thank you, Chair Desmond.
Yeah.
Sorry. One thing you mentioned that I didn't quite understand was if somebody was on the meeting, but they lost their internet connection, to stop the whole meeting. If you actually have a quorum in the room, is that required?
That's the suggestion of the legislation right now. It seems to me that really the technical problem is more with the public's connection. So if you've got the quorum, and both of these all each requires a quorum in the room no matter what. So we have to have a quorum in the jurisdiction to even use these. You can't have a majority that are using them at any one time. And hopefully that doesn't quite create a run on their use for each meeting. But that is the suggestion. I think that the real connection you have to pay attention to is the public connection. That the public, if there's any problem with the public's connection, you have to end it right then.
So presumably, if the public connection is okay, you can proceed.
Yes, provided you still have your quorum, which you should have. Yeah, I think you can.
Well, you wouldn't necessarily know that they lost their connection. I mean, LAFCO, wouldn't necessarily know that Mr. So-and-so from Valley Center, lost their connection. It's really just our connection out to the world.
Yes, that's what we're talking about, is on our end. Like if we can't get connected to YouTube, or if, the cameraman had an accident on the way in and couldn't be here to do it, that's fine. Now, that doesn't matter if no one is participating remotely, right? So if we're all here and we were broadcasting and there was a problem, you could really still go forward with the meeting.
Or
If you had to. Yeah.
Okay, when does this start?
This goes into effect January 1.
Okay, so you have homework to do over Christmas holidays, so whatever holidays you celebrate. Okay, well, thank you. We'll muddle through that when it happens. We'll see what, maybe, I don't know. Well, I'm sure we'll figure it out quickly. Next item is 7D. This is a designation of labor negotiators. The commission is going to designate representatives for purposes of negotiating the salary and benefits of our executive officer who's leaving the room. Historically, the commission has designated the executive officer compensation committee, which is currently myself, Mr. McNamara, and Mr. Vanderland, as the labor negotiators. So, Holly, do we need to do that now here before we go into closed session on 7E?
Yeah, it's in preparation for being able to have discussions under 10B. So just, it's time to entertain a motion to appoint them.
Do we need 3 labor negotiators? Is this for just purposes of it? Because McNamara's left. So do we need 3 negotiators?
Well, no, you can confine it to the 2 that are still in the meeting.
Okay.
If you like.
All right.
I'm sorry, did somebody read it?
So you're going to move for the labor negotiators to be myself and Mr. Vanderland? Is that the motion?
Yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I guess we need a roll call. Do we need a vote on this, Holly, or is it just a committee appointment?
Oh, no, we do need to do a roll call vote
Okay.
because we've got a remote participation.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair, who's second?
Ms. McKenzie.
I'll second.
Okay. Let's name Mary.
Commissioner
Sarah.
Desmond?
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderland?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson? Is he there? Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kate?
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara is absent. Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Yes.
Commissioner Salas?
Yes.
So we have 7 in favor with 1 absent. The motion passes.
Okay, well, and now in 7E, this is our closed session. Is that what we're going into here at this point, Holly, or what?
Just a reminder that 7E will be taken up following the closed session per the discussion earlier, and I think we're at executive officer report, but
We'll get that later.
we'll get it later.
Okay. I guess if we could then, we can do the commissioner announcements afterwards as well, too. So why don't you
Okay.
call us out into closed session?
Right. At this point, the commission will go into closed session on 2 items. The first is public employee performance evaluation. The employee is Keith Simons. This is under Government Code Section 54957B as in boy. And the second is conference with labor negotiators, and that is under Government Code Section 54957.6 with the unrepresented employees, the executive officer, and the 2 that were appointed on the prior agenda item.
Okay, so after that, so we're going to do closed session, then we're going to come back to 7E, and then 8 and 9. And then, is that right?
That's right.
Okay,
That's
thanks. So I guess we could go into closed session.
Commissioner Becker wants.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Becker, yes, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you want me to go into closed session since Vice Chair McNamara is not present anymore?
Yes, please.
Please, thank you.
So what do we do?
So-
Staff and those who are online that aren't.
Right, so what we did beforehand is those folks that are participating online should have a separate Zoom link. So you should close out of this one and join that separate Zoom link. Please keep this open link, keep this link handy because you'll need to come back to this link when we come back into open session. So we'll take a moment, 5 minutes to get all our technology in a row here in the room and have get it set up and have staff leave. And if you all could then, right now already, join that so we can get it all set up on our end. Close out this one and join the closed session link. Thanks. Are we back on? Back on the record?
Yes, I believe we are.
And transmitting, all right. So we've had no reportable action that came out, but we are picking up item 7E, where there will be a recommendation from the chair and a vote.
Okay, this is a proposed amendment to the employment agreement of the executive officer, Keith Simons. Simons, got his name right. Okay, I move to amend that our executive officer's employment agreement to provide for an annual bonus of 3% of his salary, which is $6,160.74, to be paid in one lump sum and no change to the annual base salary.
Second.
I just made the motion, and we have a second by Commissioner McKenzie. If there's no other discussion, could I have a roll call vote, please?
My hand is up.
Okay, Mr. Anderson.
While I can't support this today, I think Keenan's done an incredible job. It's no reflection of his work, but so many people in my district are suffering. When you look at the average household income, the salary is far in excess of anything that any of my district gets. And next year, when we're out of COVID further and we're not suffering inflation, we're not suffering incredible gas prices, I feel much more confident in voting for it because it's not a reflection of the hard work. But there's a lot of people in my district who are working hard, who are not making ends meet. When you look at Alpha Home, the average household income is $58,000. When you look at Potrero, which has now become an area where all sexual violent predators are placed, their average household income is $48,000. And for that reason, I'm not comfortable moving forward with this, but it's not for lack of outstanding work. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. No other hands or comments? We have a roll call vote, please. Tammy?
Commissioner Denson?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanderlin? Oh,
He's online right now.
He's not there.
Is he there?
He's online with me.
Let's keep the roll going, come back to him.
Commissioner Anderson? Oh, say yes, okay. Commissioner Anderson?
No.
Commissioner Kate?
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara is absent. Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Yes.
Commissioner Salas?
She's gone.
She's out. She's out. Commissioner Becker? Oh,
Yes.
And did you get Andy's vote?
yes.
Okay.
We have 6 in favor, 1 opposed, with 2 absent.
All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. All right, we're moving on to the executive officer's report.
Nothing to add. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. We have commissioner announcements. Now you can talk, Barry. Okay, good. All right. Joe McKenzie, you want to make a report?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I attended the LAFCO conference a couple weeks ago. It was a good one. The best part was the regional caucus, where each of the EOs discussed what the major projects were that they were working on. And I attended 2 LAFCO legislative meetings, and we're looking at various proposals, and I like to talk to offline to our council regarding indemnification. I believe Priscilla asked you about that, but that came up as a big topic, because without that, the little districts can't really afford any kind of a lawsuit relevant to their action. And also relevant to the email that you received from CSDA Thursday. I have no idea how that came about, but I plan on finding out. But also, the executive officer for LAFCO is now kind of backpedaling, because the board of directors had indicated that the 56133 was going to be one of their main pushes in getting the changes made. And we've been working with CSDA on staff level, and they don't have any real changes that they are willing to put forth. So how this came about, I don't know. They must be monitoring. I don't know if they're all monitoring all 58 LAFCOs, their agendas, to see what they're up to or not. But hopefully I'll have more to report in December.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, is there any other items we have? Our next meeting is on December 5th. Oh, Mr. Drake.
Oh, just saying 5.
Oh, why? December 5th. Okay, December, thank you very much. All right, everyone, thanks for your hard work getting through all of this today, and all the IT issues, and thank you very much. We'll see you in person in December. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.